Nearly 3,000 years ago was a great time for literature, which can largely be seen through the use of great literary sentences such as "Call me Ishmael," 1857, "Lolita, light of my life, fire of my loins," 1955. Happy families are all alike. Every unhappy family is unhappy in its own way. Leo Tolstoy, late 19th century. But few sentences are as strong or as significant as the sentence "for sale, baby shoes, never worn," period, which comes from the United States of America around the beginning of the 20th century to mid-20th century, so 1930s to 1950s. This sentence on its own is not just a literary sentence, but a literary text that can stand on its own. This is because it fits the definition of a text, which is anything that is created with the sole purpose of intentionally communicating meaning. So the words themselves communicate meaning, but also the punctuation marks support and communicate this meaning. Very similar to a fellow 19th to 20th century author E.E. Cummings, Ernest Hemingway, the author of that sentence, uses punctuation marks to accentuate what he says, in the same way that E.E. Cummings uses parentheses in his poem "I Carry Your Heart with Me" to draw the reader's attention to certain lines, certain portions of his poem. While this sentence is a text, it is not. We cannot use it as an example of 19th to 20th century American mass communication. Mass communication is a text produced with the sole purpose of communicating a meaning to a large group of people. It would be very difficult to make an argument that someone wrote a sentence with the intention that everyone would be reading it, that it was something meant to be sent out. Especially at this time in America, examples of mass communication would include newspapers, books, radio, television, things such as that. An example would be around this time in the early 1950s, there was a radio broadcast of a novel, War of the Worlds, which had an effect on a large number of people because a large number of people heard it. Once again, this cannot be said for a sentence. Ernest Hemingway did not write this sentence with the intention of having it communicated to a large group of people. That being said, we can make inferences about 19th to 20th century American life based on this sentence: "For sale, baby shoes, never worn." According to the CDC, at this time in American history, there were large amounts of infant mortality. So between the 1900s and the early 1900s and the late 1900s, according to the CDC, the infant mortality rate decreased by almost 100%. Till the end of the century, it was almost non-existent. 7.2 for every 1,000 babies were dying. So the fact that "For sale, baby shoes, never worn" was written at the beginning of this time period, at the beginning of the 20th century, when infant mortality rate was higher, that means that it would have a significant meaning to the people that were reading it at that time, and we can infer that now looking at it thousands of years later.